All right. Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone is having a great morning so far. I am John Williams. If you don't know already, I am the owner of Infinite Social Solutions. And every Wednesday, live stream called Morning Brew with John Williams. Every week, I'll go over a different topic that's IT or computer related. This week, conversation is going to be about the dark web. It's going to be short and simple. Not going to go too in depth about the dark web. Just kind of give you some background on what it actually is. Dispel some of the rumors that you may have heard about the dark web. So, before we begin, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. I will be monitoring the chat throughout the live stream. I will try to answer as many questions as possible. So please, if you have a question, do not hesitate to put your question in the chat. I'm not going to take up a whole lot of time this week. And just give me 1 second. Lost the screen. Oh, never mind. There we go. All right, I got it. All right, so what is the dark web? The internet's hidden underground. All right, so the internet has layers, much like an onion. All right, we talk about the internet, we're usually referring to the surface web, the stuff you can Google, like YouTube, news sites, your aunt's blog, but that's only the tip of the iceberg. So, first layer of the internet is called the surface web. So that's pretty much everything, all the websites, blogs, social media sites that you can find just by doing a simple Google search. So all the websites that come up, if they come up in the search results, everything that you see there is the surface web. So this is the part of the internet that everyone pretty much interacts with every day, all day. All right. So beneath the surface web layer, you have what is called the deep web. Okay. The deep web includes things that are not indexed by search engines, meaning they, when you do a search, things that are on the deep web you cannot find by doing a simple Google search, right? More specifically, these are things like your email inbox, online banking, cloud storage, pretty much anything that's hidden behind or that's behind a password, a username and password. So if you need a username and password to get to a certain web page, that web page, that specific web page, is not going to show up in a Google search, right? So for instance, I can't Google search your inbox. All right. Even though I have your email address, I can't Google search your inbox. It's not going to come up in the search. Same thing for your online banking account or any other accounts that you have on any other websites. Those particular pages, once you log in and you go to your account page, that account page will not show up in a regular search. And the reason for that is because it's on a private server somewhere, okay? And it can only be accessed with your username and password, right? So that's why you can't just, like, for instance, criminals online, they just can't go to mntbank.com and just start looking up individual accounts, right? They need your username and password or where other credentials they need to actually get to your account for your online bank. Same thing with email. I need your username and password to get to your inbox. Even though your inbox is technically on the internet, it's hidden behind a username and password on a server somewhere. All right. So that's the deep web. Those are the websites that are there, but can only be accessed using a password or some type of login credentials to get to that web page. Right. So below the deep web, we have what is the dark web. Okay. Many of you may have heard about the dark web through movies, TV shows. They actually take the dark web to a whole nother extreme, and there are a lot of misconceptions about the dark web, right? So what is the dark web, right? So the dark web is a small encrypted corner of the internet that requires special software to access, like the Tor browser. And I'm gonna show you the Tor browser here in a little bit. All right. So the dark web is everything that you will not find on the surface web or the deep web, right? So the dark web, the whole purpose of the dark web is anonymity, to be incognito. Basically, you're not supposed to be able to get to places on the dark web unless you have access to those places. Okay. Before we start, I want to iterate that the dark web isn't necessarily this evil place that you think of. Okay. Although, because things are encrypted, because things can be done anonymously on there, it does, people who have ill intent will use the dark web for nefarious things. However, the dark web as a whole is not this this place of just evil and and criminal activity, even though that happens. I mean, criminal activity happens on the surface web as well too, but it's just easier on the dark web because you can remain anonymous. Okay. All right. So what is the dark web? The dark web is a hidden network of websites that aren't indexed by traditional search engines and can't be accessed through normal browsers. You need tools like Tor, which is short for the onion router, to access it. Tor bounces your connection through multiple nodes worldwide, making you anonymous. That anonymity is what makes the dark web both powerful and dangerous. Okay? So, dark web, right? So, has to be accessed through a special tool. The most common tool that people use is the Tor browser, right? And I'm going to show you that here. Soon as, did I not have it? Oh. So the Tor browser, it's a free browser. Anybody can download it. You can download it onto pretty much every device. So, and this is Tor. This is the website. So I'll put the website in the chat, but it's torproject.org. So it's a web browser, just like any other web browser you have, like Google, Microsoft Edge, Brave, Firefox, any web browser, right? So what this does is it acts like I don't know if anyone is familiar with a VPN, but virtual private network, right? So you have these VPN services, and the way you stay anonymous with these VPN services is that it takes your IP address. Your IP address is a set of numbers that is the identifier for the device you're on. Okay, so every device that connects to the internet has an IP address attached to it. So that's how things are able to get routed back and forth on the internet, right? You have to know what device is there for information to go to, right? Just like give you a real world example, right? You have your house address, right? You can't get your mail, right, if you don't have an address. You can't, that mail, think of it as information, right? On the internet, you can't get information back and forth to your computer because, one, the information needs to know where to go. It needs that IP address to know exactly where to go to give you that information. And the same thing when you send out information, right? Real life, you mail a letter. You don't just take a letter with just a blank letter and put it in a mailbox, right? It's not going to go anywhere. You have to put an address on there, right? In computer terms, you have to have an IP address. You have to know where that information needs to go and where the information needs to come to, right? So what happens is, like a VPN, what Tor does is takes your IP address and just sends it to other nodes or other servers around the world. Now, what happens is that your original IP address for your device, right? Say you're on your laptop. Your IP address for your laptop gets sent to a server in India, okay? That server, what it'll do is it'll mask your IP address or change your IP address, right? So, well, several different ways of doing it, but one is masking it, right? So what it will do is take your IP address, it'll take your IP address, give it another IP address, right? But on its server, your IP address is going to be associated with that new IP address on the server, right? So if my computer connects to that server with my laptop's IP address, that server knows, oh, hey, I gave you this one specifically on our server, right? So now you have a totally different IP address. that IP address is now different from your laptop's IP address, and now it can't be traced back to your laptop, because what's going to happen is when your new IP address gets used, it's going to be looked at as if it's on that server in India, right? But this happens several times while you're on the internet using the Tor browser. So your IP address will get bounced and changed between several different servers the whole time you're on the internet. So if anybody was trying to track you down and they see activity coming from the IP address that you were given by any one of those servers, it's going to take them to the server and not back to your device, if you follow, right? So that's what the Tor browser does for you, right? So this is a free browser. You can download it. Nothing bad's going to happen if you download it. This isn't some type of malicious software or anything like that. It's just for, if you want to be truly anonymous online, Tor browser is the best way to go. So, so again, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. If we got anything? Nothing so far. All right, cool. All right, so what happens on the dark web? So let's break it down real quick. So good things that happen, right? So blowers share evidence safely, okay? So Snowden, for instance, right? He was a huge whistleblower a few years ago. He was a whistleblower for the government. He basically let the world know, especially in the United States, that the government was tracking citizens, right? And we would not have known that unless Snowden released that information. And that information, everything he found was leaked onto the dark web, all right? Journalists communicate with sources, right? So if a journalist has a source, that source wants to remain anonymous, then they'll, set up some room or some forum on a website on the dark web and exchange information, right? Those sources want to protect themselves because they may get in legal trouble. They may get fired from their job. Worst case scenario, a lot of conspiracy theorists, when something happens, when some information is divulged, people end up missing, right? So that source doesn't want to end up missing. So they want to give information or talk anonymously. And this is one way that they'll do it, all right? Activists and oppressive regimes get around censorship. So there are countries that censor their internet. The main ones are China, Russia, Iran, India to some extent. These are countries that either have complete control over the country's internet, or India, for instance, they don't have complete control. However, they go out of their way. Like if you speak bad about India in any way, India will, either track you down or have your whatever the negative things that you said about them taken down from the internet. So it could be on social media, could be on the website. They will shut down the website if you speak bad about India. China, on the other hand, they monitor their internet, right? So you can't say anything bad about China. You can't say anything good about another country or on China's internet. China pretty much censors all of their internet. So if the Chinese government doesn't like what's on there, they will censor it. They will block it. There are even some websites, especially like American websites, you can't even get to on Chinese internet, right? If I'm not mistaken, they can't get the normal, like they can't get, I think they have Facebook, but it's heavily censored. They can't get on Twitter or X, things like Instagram. So the country actually has, there is a Chinese version of Twitter/X. They'll have equivalent versions of these social media sites that are blocked in these countries. But that's what happens, right? United States, well, the internet, the internet is not regulated by anyone, right? The internet is open. It's an open range, right? But governments do end up censoring, depends on how far they want to go. Luckily, we live in the United States where, quote unquote, free speech, right? So the government isn't going to do but so much. However, I'm pretty sure they do some type of censorship, right? But we'll never hear about it to its fullest extent. However, we do have freedom of speech here in this country, so a lot of things get censored. A lot of things don't get censored or won't get censored, which is good in a way. But that's going down a political rabbit hole, so I'm not gonna spend too much time on that. But yeah, so that's what happens, right? Activists and oppressive regimes get around censorship. So if there's like a underground organization that's trying to overthrow the government, they'll use the dark web to communicate, to stay out of the eye of the government, right? So what's the bad? All right, so there's a lot of bad about the dark web, right? So stolen data, right? So when these large companies, when they have like security breaches, when data is stolen from like these banks or healthcare companies or just retailers, you name it. I think at this point, working in IT for 20 plus years, I always tell people at this point, your information was stolen at some point, somewhere during the last 20 years, right? Like they have your information. So don't even stress about having your information stolen. It's already been stolen. Like we're way past that, right? But all your password accounts, credit card numbers, things of that nature. This is on the dark web. That is where all this information gets bought and sold and exchanged for money. Or I have these passwords, but I need social security numbers, so I'll trade password for social security numbers. So dark web is where all the stolen information gets bought and sold back and forth, right? So again, I'm actually going to post a website so you can check to see where you're actually. Let me do it right now. So there, Google does have a tool. It is free. That will show you your information that has been stolen on the dark web, and it shows you exactly which accounts and what was actually stolen for all of those accounts. So I'll put it in the chat. Let me put it in the other chat here. So if you want to check to see if your information and what information was stolen, that's a good tool to use. It also tells you when it was stolen as well too. So you can check that out at your leisure. It's completely free, and it's an awesome resource to have as well. I used it the last time I used it. There were a lot of accounts that I haven't even used in like 15 years that I forgot I had, and it was good to know. Because now I can go back and possibly log into those accounts and delete those accounts since I'm not using them anymore. So, but it's a great tool. I recommend it. Everybody use it to figure out what information is out there on the dark web. All right. So, is the dark web illegal? No. However, the dark web is used to do illegal things. One of the largest websites on the dark web, probably heard of it, was called the Silk Road. Silk Road was a website. Pretty much, it was the Amazon of illegal goods, for lack of a better analogy. It was the Amazon for illegal goods. So if there was anything illegal, that you needed to buy or could think of buying, chances are it was on the Silk Road, or you could get in touch with someone who has access to these illegal goods and they would put it on Silk Road, right? So you would this huge website, and I've been on Silk Road before. That's a story. I'll tell that story here in a bit, right? So yes, so Silk Road was a website where you could buy drugs, you could buy guns. Sad to say, you could buy people. You could buy credit card numbers. You could buy social security numbers. You could buy email lists, and anything related to anything illegal. You could buy hitmen. on Silk Road, like anything illegal you could buy on Silk Road. Silk Road was the largest and most well known. They were, they are, and they are the reason why Bitcoin is worth so much, because Bitcoin is an encrypted digital currency, right? So anyone using any type of cryptocurrency, when transactions are made online, it doesn't have your name attached to it, doesn't have any type of identifiable information or PI attached to it, right? Like, they don't care who you are when you're making a transaction. They just want that money, right? So the reason why Bitcoin is worth as much as it is because it was primarily used on the dark web, most famously used for transactions on the website Silk Road. Okay, so you can, if you are someone who is into cryptocurrency and you have Bitcoin and you made a lot of money off of Bitcoin, technically, in a way, if you want to look at it, Bitcoin is dirty money. The only reason why Bitcoin is worth so much is because of it gained popularity on the Silk Road, and to some extent, it's still used for illegal transactions on the dark web. So, thank the dark web for your Bitcoin, or the value of your Bitcoin. All right. So why do people use the dark web? Some people use it to avoid surveillance, freedom, and profit, right? You want to do something illegal, you got some drugs you got to push, things like that. That's how you let's use the dark web for that. All right. So how to stay safe without clicking sketchy links. All right. So if you end up on the dark road, all right, make sure you want to be extra cautious if you're on the dark web. You want to be extra cautious because there are a lot of sites set up for malicious purposes, right? You're not going there. You're not going to the dark web to find recipes, right? So if you happen to come across a website on the dark web that has recipes, be very wary of that, because 99% sure there's going to be some malware on that website, right? Even with a regular website on the surface web with a lot of recipe websites, I know for a fact there is malicious software on those websites, because they know people, especially older people who don't know any better, go to these recipe sites and inadvertently download malware on their computer. They think they're going to a harmless site, and when in fact, there's a lot of malware hidden on these sites, because they know the people that go to these sites aren't aware and aren't really educated on avoiding malware and things like that. So they're easy targets, right? So, but if you're on the dark web looking for a recipe, I can almost guarantee that is a malicious site. Like, you're not going to the dark web to look up an apple pie recipe. That just doesn't make any sense, right? So don't go exploring blindly. Most dark web horror stories start with curiosity and a click. So I'm gonna tell you my story about how I discovered the dark web, right? So I was probably, if I wasn't in the 8th grade, I was probably more than likely I was in high school. It was between, I know it was between 7th and 9th grade during that time period in my life, right? So AOL was really huge then. I was on AOL constantly. They had these news groups in AOL. I won't tell you exactly why I was in those news groups, but as a kid I shouldn't have been there. But as an adult, it's fine now. But the way you transfer files in these news groups without getting in trouble, right? So one of the things you would do is, like, for images, you have images of women, right? You couldn't, if you wanted to avoid getting in trouble, you did not post the image with the correct extension, right? So if I had a JPEG, right, I would not post the picture with .jpg. right? JPG is the extension for JPEG. What you would do is you would take the extension and change it to .txt, which is the extension for text. So now that image was going to show as a text file. But when you open that text file, all you're going to see is the code for the image. You're not going to see the image, right? And that code looks like gibberish. However, inside of that code, sometimes people would hide an IP address, right? And that's how you would transfer, dark web websites in that code. So no one's going to get in trouble for having that text file, because the text file, again, is just gibberish. The IP address is just numbers. Nobody's really paying attention unless they know what they're looking for, right? So when you download the file, if you want that picture, then you can change the extension to back to .jpg, and now you got that picture of that woman that you desperately wanted, right? However, I was very intuitive. I caught on quick, right? So I would see these text files over and over again. But one day I actually sat and went through the text file, and I would see web addresses, I would see IP addresses, and I knew what they were, right? So one day I decided, all right, I'm gonna copy and paste this IP address, boom, put it in the browser. I'm instantly on the dark web, right? I go to this page that just has it doesn't tell you or just have a description of the websites that's in this list. It's just a bunch of IP addresses, right? So one by one, I go clicking these IP addresses. One site was for like Russian mail order brides. I didn't find anything like I didn't find anything that bad. Like I didn't find sites to with murder or I hate it but pedophile site, like things like that. Like I wasn't finding things like that. I was just finding things that were on the border of illegal and really underground. Like there were there were like video game websites, like normal websites that you would normally find on the surface web, but they would just happen just to be on the dark web, right? But that was my introduction to the dark web. I haven't been back since because I've never had a reason or a motivation to go finding those types of things. But I know that they're there. I know how to get to them if I need to. But having that knowledge is important because I can pass that knowledge on to other people and show them and from experience, how to stay away or stay safe if they end up on the dark web, right? So again, don't go exploring blindly. If you do get a motivation or interest in exploring the dark web, just be careful, all right? Avoid downloading anything. So yes, don't download anything from the dark web. That is very important, very, very important. I remember, and it probably still exists, but I had a buddy who, and when I was in the Navy, he had this program, right? Little innocent program. And he would do it to play tricks on us, right? So basically what the program does, once you executed the program on your computer, he had access to your computer, right? So those types of malware exist and are highly prevalent on the dark web. So that's why you want to avoid downloading anything from the dark web. Never give out personal information when you're on the dark web. That should go without saying. The whole reason why you're being there is because you want to remain anonymous. So you do not, for any reason, give anyone personal information, and not just speaking on the dark web, but just on the surface web. If even in your emails, do not give your personal information unless you know who you're giving your information to. Very important. So always keep that in mind. For extra layer of security, even though Tor does do what VPNs also do, you can also double up on the protection by using a VPN with Tor. Okay, that double layer of security should protect you. You can't get any more secure than that. unless you just buy your own server and explore the dark web that way. All right. So that was just a quick and simple explanation of the dark web. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. If you want to read the article that I was reading from, I've put that in the chat as well. And if for any reason you want to get in touch with me, I'm going to put contact email in the chat as well. But thank you for hanging out with me this week. Not sure what topic I'm going to do next week, but it'll be interesting. So if you want to learn more about me and my company, which is Infinite Social Solutions, you can just go to the website here, and I do offer IT services, resume writing, website development, social media management. So if you're interested in that, just check us out. And with that being said, thanks for hanging out, guys. I will see you next week. Peace.